The morning sun cast sharp shadows across Julian Westbrook's corner office on the 42nd floor of Westbrook Tower. He adjusted his platinum cufflinks for the third time, a nervous habit he thought he had eliminated years ago. The divorce papers lay spread across his mahogany desk like accusations, each page a reminder of a marriage he had systematically dismantled through neglect and ambition. His lawyer had assured him this was merely a formality, a final signature to close a chapter that had ended 18 months ago when Elena Carter walked out of their penthouse in his life. Julian had built his reputation on being unmoved by emotion. At 35, he controlled a $7 billion investment empire, made decisions that affected thousands of employees, and negotiated deals that left seasoned businessmen shaking in boardrooms. The divorce from Elena was supposed to be just another transaction, another contract to execute with precision and move forward. He had even scheduled a celebratory dinner with his business partners for that evening, a symbolic gesture of his return to complete focus on expanding Westbrook investments into European markets. His assistant knocked twice before entering. Julian barely glanced up from the financial reports he was pretending to review. His mind kept wandering to the clock, calculating how long this meeting would take and whether he could still make his afternoon conference call with London investors. Time was currency in his world, and he had already allocated exactly 15 minutes for this divorce finalize. The door opened wider, and Julian lifted his pen, ready to sign. But instead of Elena alone, 3 figures entered his office. His breath caught in his throat as he watched Elena Carter walk in, her honey-colored hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. Wearing a blue dress he had never seen before, she looked different somehow, more grounded, more purposeful. But what made Julian's pen slip from his fingers were the 2 small children holding each of her hands. Twin toddlers. A boy and a girl, identical in their curious brown eyes and dark curls. They could not have been more than 2 years old, dressed in matching outfits, staring around his office with the wonder only small children possess. The boy clutched a stuffed elephant, while the girl held tightly to her mother's hand, shy but observant. Julian stood slowly, his chair rolling back and hitting the window behind him with a soft thud. His mouth opened, but no words came out. His brain, so quick with calculations and strategic planning, simply stopped functioning. The papers on his desk, the divorce agreement he had been ready to sign without hesitation, suddenly felt like they weighed 1,000 pounds. Elena's voice cut through the silence, steady but carrying an undertone of long-buried pain. "Julian, I need you to meet Oliver and Sophia. Your children, our children." The words hung in the air like a verdict. Julian felt his legs weakening, and he gripped the edge of his desk for support. This could not be real. This had to be some kind of mistake, some misunderstanding. But as he looked at the twins, really looked at them, he saw his own features reflected back. Oliver had his jawline, his stance. Sophia had his mother's smile, the same one he saw in old family photographs. How? The word came out as barely a whisper, when Elena's jaw tightened, and Julian recognized that expression. It was the same look she had given him countless times during their marriage, when he had disappointed her, when he had missed yet another dinner, another anniversary, another moment that mattered. But this time the disappointment was mixed with something else, something that looked like righteous anger held back by sheer willpower. "They are 2 years old, Julian. 26 months to be exact. Do the math yourself." Elena's voice remained controlled, but Julian could hear the tremor underneath. "When I found out I was pregnant, I tried to tell you. I came to this building 5 times. Your security stopped me every single time. I called your office 73 times. Your assistant had clear instructions to block me. I sent emails, letters, messages, through your lawyer. Everything was returned or ignored." Julian's mind raced backward through time. The separation had been bitter, filled with his accusations of Elena being too demanding, too emotional, too distracting from his business goals. He had wanted a clean break, a complete severance. He had given explicit orders to his entire team to cut off all contact with her. No exceptions, he had said. No weakness, no looking back. The realization hit him like a physical blow. Elena had been pregnant when he issued those orders. She had been carrying his children, alone, and unable to reach him because he had built an impenetrable wall around himself. While he was closing billion-dollar deals and celebrating acquisitions, she was going through morning sickness alone. While he was flying first class to business meetings around the world, she was in hospital rooms facing the terrifying prospect of raising twins without support. I did not know. Julian's voice broke, and he hated how weak it sounded. Elena, I swear, I had no idea you were trying to contact me about this. I thought you were just trying to get more money in the settlement. Elena's laugh was bitter and sharp. Money, of course. That is what you would think. Because everything in your world comes down to money, does it not, Julian? She took a step forward, and the twins moved with her, their little feet shuffling on the expensive carpet. I did not need your money. I needed you to know you were going to be a father. I needed you to have the choice to be involved or not. But you took that choice away from both of us. Julian moved around his desk, slowly as if approaching something fragile that might shatter. His eyes never left the children. Oliver looked up at him with curiosity, while Sophia partially hid behind her mother's leg, peeking out with cautious interest. They were beautiful, perfect, and completely unknown to him. Can I? Julian's voice faltered. Can I hold them? Elena's protective instincts flared visibly. She pulled the twins slightly closer to her, and Julian felt that movement like a knife to his chest. He had no right to these children, no claim beyond biology. He was a stranger to them, and whose fault was that? But after a long moment, Elena knelt down beside Oliver and Sophia. Her voice softened, taking on the gentle tone Julian had only heard her use with pets and small children during their marriage. Babies, this is someone very important. This is your daddy. He has been away, but he is here now. Oliver stepped forward first, brave in the way only toddlers can be. He held up his stuffed elephant to Julian, offering it with the pure generosity of a child who does not yet know about hurt or betrayal. Julian took the toy with trembling hands, then slowly lowered himself to his knees. Bringing himself to their eye level, Sophia followed her brother hesitantly, reaching out one small hand to touch Julian's tie. It was expensive silk, imported from Italy, and cost more than most people spent on groceries in a month. But under her tiny fingers, it was just a piece of fabric, interesting in texture and color. Hi. Julian's voice cracked completely. Hi, Oliver. Hi, Sophia. And then, as if some dam inside him broke, tears began streaming down Julian Westbrook's face. The man who never cried, who prided himself on emotional control, who had negotiated billion-dollar deals without flinching, completely fell apart in front of his children. He pulled them both into an awkward, desperate embrace, feeling their small bodies against his chest, smelling the sweet scent of children's shampoo and innocence. I am so sorry. The words poured out between sobs. I am so sorry I was not there. I am so sorry. So sorry. Elena looked away, her own eyes glistening with unshed tears. Seeing Julian broken was satisfying in a dark way, but it also hurt. This was the man she had loved, the man she had believed in before ambition consumed him entirely. Somewhere deep inside that corporate exterior had been someone capable of feeling, of caring. She had almost forgotten that person existed. After several minutes, Julian released the twins and stood, wiping his face with the back of his hand. His composure was shattered, his carefully constructed walls demolished by two tiny humans he had not even known existed an hour ago. He looked at Elena, really looked at her for the first time in years, and saw the strength there, the resilience she had built alone. What do you need from me? Julian asked, his voice hoarse. Tell me what you need, and I will do it. Anything. Elena pulled out a folder from her bag and placed it on his desk beside the unsigned divorce papers. These are custody and visitation agreements. My lawyer drew them up. I am not asking for child support beyond what is reasonable. I have been supporting them myself for 2 years. What I want is for you to be a real father, Julian. Not a check that arrives monthly, not a weekend visitor when it is convenient. Real involvement, real commitment. If you cannot do that, then sign the divorce papers, and we will leave. The twins deserve better than an absent father who shows up for photo opportunities. Julian looked between the two stacks of papers. The divorce agreement on the left, representing freedom, simplicity, his return to uncomplicated business focus. The custody papers on the right, representing responsibility, chaos, complete upheaval of the life he had carefully constructed. His hand hovered between them. Oliver tugged on his pant leg. "Daddy, play?" Those two words made the decision. Julian picked up the divorce papers and set them aside, face down. Then he picked up the custody agreement and began reading every word carefully. Elena watched, holding her breath, not daring to hope, but unable to stop the small spark of possibility that flickered in her chest. "When can I see them again?" Julian asked, looking up from the papers. "Tomorrow? Tonight? When is their bedtime? What do they like to eat? What are their favorite toys?" His questions tumbled out rapidly, desperately. The mind that memorized market trends and investment portfolios now scrambling to learn everything about two small humans. Should have known from birth. Elena felt something inside her soften slightly. Maybe, just maybe, there was hope after all. But she had been disappointed too. Many times before, to let her guard down completely. The following weeks transformed Julian Westbrook's meticulously organized life into beautiful chaos. His mornings, once dedicated to reviewing Asian market reports with black coffee, now began at 6, with Oliver and Sophia. Bursting into the guest room of Elena's apartment where he had been sleeping on the couch. They would jump on him, demanding pancakes and cartoons, their laughter filling spaces that had been silent for too long. Julian tried to maintain his business empire while learning to be a father. He took calls while building block towers. He reviewed contracts while referees cartoon disputes between the twins. His tailored suits now carried mysterious stains. His briefcase contained crayons alongside financial reports, and his luxury car had car seats installed in the back. But the cracks began showing quickly. Victoria Ross, his business partner, and the firm's chief operating officer, called an emergency meeting on a Tuesday morning. Julian arrived 20 minutes late, having struggled to drop the twins at daycare when Sophia cried about leaving her favorite stuffed bunny at home. He had driven back, retrieved the bunny, soothed Sophia, and then raced to the office. Victoria stood at the head of the conference room, her expression carved from ice. The other board members sat around the table, their faces reflecting various degrees of concern and frustration. Julian took his seat, trying to project the authority he had always commanded, but he could feel their judgment. "This is the third crucial meeting you have missed, or arrived late to this month." Victoria began without preamble. "The Shanghai investors pulled out because you were not on the conference call? The merger with Steinberg Holdings is falling apart because you have not returned their calls for a week. Julian, what is happening to you?" Julian loosened his tie, feeling the walls close in. "I am dealing with a personal situation. It is temporary, while I adjust to new circumstances. Personal situations do not pay our investors their returns." Victoria shot back. "You built this company on the promise of your complete dedication. Now, you are distracted, unavailable, making mistakes a first-year analyst would catch. The board is losing confidence." Around the table, heads nodded. These were men and women Julian had worked with for years, people who had trusted him with billions of dollars. Now they looked at him like he was a liability. "I need time," Julian said, hating how it sounded like begging. "Just a few more weeks to establish a routine." "We do not have weeks." Victoria slid a folder across the table. "These are the quarterly projections if we continue at this rate. We are hemorrhaging clients, Julian. The board is considering a vote of no confidence." Julian opened the folder, and the numbers confirmed his worst fears. His absence and distraction were costing the company millions. Everything he had built over 15 years was crumbling because he could not be in two places at once. That evening, Julian returned to Elena's apartment, exhausted and defeated. The twins ran to him immediately, and their unconditional joy was the only bright spot in his day. But Elena noticed his expression right away. She waited until Oliver and Sophia were occupied with their toys before approaching him. "Bad day?" she asked, her voice neutral but concerned. Julian slumped on the couch, his head in his hands. The board is considering removing me as CEO. Everything is falling apart. Elena, I am losing the company. Elena sat beside him, not touching, but present. What are you going to do? I do not know. Julian looked up at her, his eyes red with stress and lack of sleep. I cannot do both. I cannot be the father they need and save my company, but I cannot choose between them either. Before Elena could respond, her phone rang. She glanced at the screen and her expression changed. She stepped into the kitchen to take the call, and Julian watched through the doorway as her conversation grew animated. When she returned, she held her phone tightly, her face unreadable. That was Davidson and Associates in Chicago. They are offering me a senior management position. Head of operations, full benefits, relocation assistance. The salary is twice what I make now. Julian felt his stomach drop. Chicago? That was 800 miles away. When do they need an answer? Elena sat down, looking at the twins playing peacefully on the floor. Julian, I have been barely making ends meet. Working 2 jobs to support them while finishing my degree online? This opportunity could change everything for us. For them, but you would take them away. Julian's voice broke. I just found them, Elena. I just started being their father. And that is exactly the problem. Elena turned to face him fully, her eyes sad but resolute. Look at yourself, Julian. You are exhausted, stressed, being torn apart. The twins see it too. Yesterday, Oliver asked me why Daddy always looks sad. Sophia cried when you canceled taking them to the park because of an emergency meeting. They are confused. They do not understand why you are here, but not really present. Every word was true, and Julian knew it. Even when he was physically with Oliver and Sophia, his mind wandered to the crisis at work, to the angry calls from Victoria, to the empire crumbling under his absence. The twins deserved better than a father who was there in body but absent in spirit. How much time do I have? Julian asked quietly. Elena looked at her phone. They want my answer by Friday afternoon. Today is Tuesday. You have 3 days to figure out what you are going to do with your life, Julian. That night, Julian could not sleep. He sat on Elena's couch, his laptop open to financial reports he could not focus on. Around 2 in the morning, Sophia appeared in the doorway, dragging her blanket and rubbing her eyes. Daddy cannot sleep. She whispered. Julian immediately closed his laptop and opened his arms. Sophia climbed onto his lap, curling against his chest. He held her, feeling her heartbeat, smelling her baby shampoo. Something inside him cracked open even wider. Tell me a story, Sophia requested sleepily. Julian had never told a story in his life. His childhood had been filled with business lessons from his own father, preparation for taking over the family empire. But looking down at Sophia's expectant face, he began making up a tale about a brave princess and her twin brother who went on adventures. Sophia fell asleep within minutes, but Julian kept talking, kept holding her, memorizing this moment. When Elena came out an hour later to check on them, she found Julian asleep on the couch, with Sophia sprawled across his chest, both peaceful. She stood in the doorway for a long moment, her heart aching with the complexity of it all. This was the man she had fallen in love with years ago, before ambition had consumed him. But was this transformation real, or just temporary panic? Wednesday brought another crisis. Julian's father, Richard Westbrook, the retired founder of Westbrook Investments, demanded lunch at his club. Julian knew this conversation was coming, and dreaded it. Richard was everything Julian had tried to become: ruthless, focused, successful beyond measure. He was also divorced 3 times and had not spoken to his other children in years. They sat in the exclusive dining room, surrounded by oil paintings and old money. Richard did not waste time on pleasantries. You are destroying everything I built, Richard said coldly, cutting his steak with precise movements. Victoria called me. The board is preparing to remove you. Do you understand what that means? 40 years of the Westbrook name attached to excellence. Gone because my son cannot control his personal life. I have children, father. Twin children I did not know existed. Surely you understand that changes things. Richard laughed, but there was no humor in it. I understand that you are being weak. I had 4 children, Julian. Do you know how many of their births I attended? None. How many school plays? None. I built an empire while your mother raised you, and that empire provided everything you needed. And that empire is all you have left, Julian said quietly. Mother left you. My siblings will not speak to you. You are alone with your billions, father. Is that really what you want for me? Richard's face reddened. I am successful. I am respected. I changed the financial world. But at what cost? Julian leaned forward. I am just starting to know my children, and already I can see what I would lose if I follow your path. Oliver laughs at my jokes. Sophia falls asleep in my arms. They trust me, father, even though I have barely been in their lives. How much would I have to give up to keep the company? How much of their childhood would I miss? You are being sentimental and foolish. Richard threw his napkin on the table. Choose the company. Women and children come and go, but legacy endures. Julian stood slowly. You are right about one thing. Legacy endures. But I want my legacy to be that I was a good father, not that I was a rich man who died alone. Thank you for lunch, father. I will pay my own way out. He left Richard sitting there, stunned and angry. As Julian walked through the club, past men his father's age drinking expensive scotch and talking about portfolios, he felt something shift inside him. These men had everything money could buy and nothing that actually mattered. Thursday morning, Julian made his decision. He called Victoria and requested an emergency board meeting for that afternoon. Then he called Elena. Do not accept the Chicago job yet. Please, just wait until after today. I am going to fix this. Julian and Elena sighed. You cannot fix everything. Some choices do not have perfect solutions. Trust me one more time, please. The board meeting at 4 o'clock was attended by every major shareholder and partner. Victoria stood at the head of the table, resignation letter prepared for Julian to sign. But Julian had prepared something else entirely. He stood before the people who had trusted him, who had believed in his vision, and he told them the truth. Every detail. The twins he had not known existed. Elena's attempts to reach him that he had blocked. His struggle to be both CEO and father. The impossible choice he had been facing. I built this company because I was empty inside, Julian said, his voice steady, despite the emotion behind it. I filled my life with deals and acquisitions because I did not know how to fill it with real connections. But I cannot do that anymore. I cannot sacrifice my children for profit margins. Victoria's expression softened slightly. What are you saying, Julian? I am stepping down as CEO, effective immediately. Julian placed a document on the table. Victoria, you have been running operations better than I have for months. The company will be in excellent hands. I am retaining my shares but taking a consulting role. I will be available for major decisions, but I will not be involved in daily operations. The room erupted in shocked conversations. Victoria stared at the document, then at Julian. You are walking away? From everything you built? I am not walking away. Julian smiled, and it was the first genuine smile anyone had seen from him in years. I am choosing what matters most. This company will survive without me as CEO. It might even thrive. But Oliver and Sophia will not get another chance at childhood. Elena will not wait forever. This is my choice, and I am at peace with it. Julian drove directly from the office to Elena's apartment, his heart pounding with fear and hope in equal measure. He had just given up his position, his daily control of the empire he had built, everything his father valued, everything he had sacrificed his marriage for, he had just walked away from in one afternoon. Elena opened the door, surprise evident on her face. The meeting was supposed to last until 6. Why are you here? Because I made a choice. Julian stepped inside, where Oliver and Sophia were building a fort out of couch cushions. Before Elena could respond, he knelt down beside his children. Hey, you two! Guess what? Daddy's going to be here every single day now. Every breakfast, every dinner, every bedtime story. Oliver's eyes went wide. Really? Every day? Every single day. I promise, Sophia threw her arms around his neck. Yay. Daddy stays. Elena pulled Julian aside while the twins returned to their fort construction. "Julian, what did you do?" "I stepped down as CEO. Victoria is taking over. I am keeping shares and consulting, but I will not be running daily operations anymore." He took her hands in his. "I chose you. I chose them. I chose the life I should have had all along." Elena's eyes filled with tears. "You gave up your company for us?" "I gave up the illusion that the company was more important than you." Julian brushed a tear from her cheek. "And I need to tell you something else. That first day, when you came to my office with the twins, I lied to you." Elena frowned. "What do you mean?" "The contract error I claimed to find." Julian took a deep breath. "There was no error. I made it up. I invented that story because the moment I held Oliver and Sophia, I knew I could not let you walk away. I needed time to figure out how to keep you in my life. It was selfish and desperate. But I could not sign those divorce papers and lose you." Elena stared at him for a long moment, and Julian braced himself for anger. But instead, she started laughing. Not cruel laughter, but genuine amusement mixed with tears. "Oh, Julian," she said, covering her mouth. "You thought I did not know?" "What?" Julian's world tilted. "You knew? From the moment you claimed there was an error?" Elena wiped her eyes. "I was married to you for 5 years, Julian. I know when you are lying. You get this guilty look. You cannot maintain eye contact, and your voice goes up half an octave. When you invented that contract error story, I knew immediately what you were doing, but you never said anything. You let me think I was fooling you, because part of me wanted to be fooled." Elena took his hands. "When I saw you hold our children for the first time, and I watched you completely break down, I saw the man I fell in love with. The man who existed before money and power consumed him. And when you lied about that contract as poorly as you did, I knew you were fighting to keep us. So I gave you time. Time to prove whether your change was real or just panic." Julian felt tears streaming down his face. "Was it enough? Did I prove it?" Elena smiled, reaching up to wipe his tears. "You gave up your position. You chose fatherhood over empire. You faced your demons and came out on the other side. Yes, Julian, it was enough. Then let me ask you something properly this time." Julian dropped to one knee right there in the living room in front of the pillow fort and scattered toys. "Elena Carter, I was an idiot who did not know what he had until it was gone. I missed 2 years of our children's lives because I was too proud and too stupid to see what mattered. But I see it now. I see you, I see them, and I see the life we could have together. Will you marry me again? Will you give me the chance to be the husband and father I should have been from the beginning?" Oliver peeked out from the fort. "Mommy crying?" "Happy tears, baby," Elena said, her voice breaking. "Mommy has very happy tears." She looked at Julian, really looked at him. Seeing not the corporate titan, but the vulnerable man who had finally found his way home? "Yes, yes. Julian Westbrook, I will marry you again." Julian stood and pulled her into a kiss, and this time it felt different from any kiss they had shared before. It was not the passionate desperation of their early relationship or the hollow routine of their failing marriage. This was something deeper. It's built on honesty and sacrifice and choosing each other every single day. The twins erupted from their fort, dancing around their parents. Wedding, wedding. They chanted, not fully understanding, but caught up in the joy. 3 years later, Julian stood in the backyard of their new house in the suburbs, watching the morning unfold like a perfect painting. Oliver and Sophia, now 5 years old, chased each other around the garden while their baby sister, 2-month-old Grace, slept peacefully in a carrier beside Elena. The house was nothing like the penthouse Julian had once owned. It was smaller, in a normal neighborhood with a yard perfect for playing. Julian had sold the penthouse and most of his expensive possessions. He did not need status symbols anymore. "You were quiet this morning," Lena said, nursing a cup of tea while keeping one hand on Grace's carrier. "What are you thinking about?" Julian sat beside her on the porch swing, pulling her close. "I am thinking about how I almost lost all of this. How I spent years building something that meant nothing compared to this moment right here. Elena rested her head on his shoulder. Do you ever regret it? Stepping down from the company? Not for a single second. Julian watched Oliver help Sophia climb the small tree they had planted last spring. The company is doing better than ever under Victoria. I still consult, still make good money from my shares. But more importantly, I was there when Grace was born. I did not miss a single moment. I was in the delivery room. I cut her cord. I held her first. That is worth more than every deal I ever closed. Your father still does not understand, Elena said softly. Richard Westbrook had attended their second wedding, but had not spoken to Julian since. The disappointment was mutual. Father is a lonely old man who will die surrounded by his money and nothing else. Julian kissed Elena's forehead. I used to think he was successful. Now I see he was just empty. I refused to make his mistakes. Sophia ran up to the porch, her face flushed with excitement. Daddy! Daddy! Oliver says he can climb higher than me. Tell him I can climb higher. How about instead of competing, you to help each other climb safely? Julian suggested. That way, you both get to enjoy the view from the top. Sophia considered this, then nodded and ran back to her brother. Oliver, Daddy says we should help each other. That is good parenting, Elena said with a smile. Much better than your first attempts at making breakfast. Julian laughed. I have learned a lot in 3 years. Though I still cannot braid hair as well as you do, you are learning. Elena watched the twins now working together to climb the tree. They are good kids, Julian. Happy, secure, loved. We did that together, no, Julian corrected gently. You did that alone for their first 2 years? I am just grateful you let me join the journey even after everything I did wrong. Elena turned to look at him fully. We all make mistakes, Julian. What matters is whether we learn from them, whether we grow. You did both. She paused, then added with a teasing smile, though I will never let you forget that terrible lie about the contract error. That was possibly the worst acting I have ever seen. Julian groaned. Will you hold that over me forever? Absolutely. Until we are old and gray and chasing grandchildren, I can live with that. Julian pulled her closer. I can live with anything as long as I have you and them. Grace stirred in her carrier, making the small noises that indicated she would wake soon. Julian immediately stood and carefully lifted his daughter, cradling her with the expertise of a father who had been present for every moment. She opened her eyes and looked at him, and his heart melted for the 1,000th time. Good morning, little one, he whispered. Welcome to another beautiful day. Elena watched him with their daughter, the gentle way he supported her head, the soft tone he used. This was the Julian she had always known was buried under the corporate armor. This was the man worth fighting for, worth forgiving, worth building a life with. Oliver and Sophia came running back. Can we go to the park today, please? Julian looked at Elena, who nodded. The park it is. But first, breakfast. Who wants pancakes, me? Both twins shouted simultaneously, as they all moved inside. The house filled with noise and laughter, and the chaotic beauty of family life. Julian paused at the doorway. He looked back at the garden, at the swing where he and Elena had been sitting, at the tree the twins were learning to climb together, and felt overwhelming gratitude. He had spent years chasing success, defining himself by profit margins and market dominance. He had built an empire that meant nothing when held against the weight of a child's laughter. He had almost sacrificed everything real for things that were ultimately hollow, but he had been given a second chance. Elena had given him that chance not because he deserved it, but because she believed in the possibility of change. And he had grabbed that chance with both hands and never let go. Daddy, you coming? Sophia called from the kitchen. Coming, sweetheart. Julian closed the door behind him, literally and figuratively leaving behind the man he used to be. The morning stretched ahead, full of small moments that would add up to a lifetime of meaning. Pancakes to make, stories to tell. Scraped knees to bandage, homework to help with eventually. First days of school, holiday celebrations, teenage drama still to come. He had chosen this life over empire, and it was the best decision he had ever made, the only decision that truly mattered. And every morning when he woke up to the sounds of his children and looked at the woman sleeping beside him, Julian Westbrook knew with absolute certainty that he was the richest man in the world, not in money, but in the things money could never buy. In love freely given, in trust rebuilt, in children who knew their father would always be there, in a partner who believed in second chances, in mornings that began with pancakes instead of profit reports, in evenings that ended with bedtime stories instead of business calls. This was the legacy worth building. This was the empire worth fighting for. This was everything. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this story. If you've enjoyed this content, don't forget to click like, share this story with your friends and family, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on more meaningful stories.